but it's your show.
Well, we're not done with night one of WrestleMania.
Oh, well, that was the main event, but that wasn't the last thing. Because the last thing was a talk show, the KO show. I mean, this is what people were waiting for, and they were chanting Austin before Owens even said a word, but he comes out in the, meager little set in the ring, the KO show, the signs, and etc. And he did a good promo to start this thing out because Owens can talk. He doesn't sound like he's reciting lines or had a script memorized or somebody told him to say these things. He sounds like he's coming up with it off the top of his head, and just with the little asides and, inflections that he puts in, and the way he sometimes, I got an idea, just it's natural. And he, ranted at the Texans. He apologized for telling the truth about their pathetic state. And then he ran Austin down, said he was going to pour beer down his throat. There was nothing Austin was going to be able to do about it. And the music, the glass breaks and hits and interrupts him, and the babies come in the air. And here comes Austin. And he looks basically the same. He was bald, so it doesn't matter if he lost his hair because nobody would know. He's the same weight. His arms look good. He looks like Stone Cold Steve Austin. If you get a close-up in high def, you can tell he's got a little more age on his face. And he obviously doesn't move like he did 25 years ago, but it looks like Austin. And they loved it. And after he did the both ends of the stage thing, he goes back and he's gone for a while, and he comes back out riding the ATV and circled the ring, and they're chanting and blah, blah, blah. And we knew that they were going to come to some kind of physicality. And let me ask you this before we even get into it. Do you think in hindsight, because if they didn't advertise this as a match, it's probably because Austin didn't want them to, because he didn't want to take the chance on advertising a Steve Austin match and not being able to deliver it. I would think that would be the only reason why they didn't advertise that this was going to be a match. But then he got out there and did it. Should they have called this a match from the start? Would anybody have been upset if they had advertised this as a match through and through and they did the same thing?
What we had originally heard was there was going to be a match, and then we heard that Austin thought better of it and that we were going to get this interview segment. The buildup has been atrocious, despite some good promos from Kevin Owens. You know what? I don't know how big a difference it would have made. That's the question. If you bill it as the last appearance, the last match of Steve Austin, would it have made a big difference? I will say it was kind of cool watching it get set up and it happening and watching Austin's face and just the little moments where the crowd realized, oh shit, we are going to get a match. Like where he said, well, I had my first match in Texas or in Dallas. And then you start realizing, oh shit.
Yeah.
We may be about to get a match. I'm not going to complain too much. I really enjoyed it. I really liked it. Wasn't a good build-up. But if they were going to try to keep it a secret that he was going to work a match and not bill it as a match, I can't nitpick too much. Like you said, maybe he asked for that.
It may have been, it may have been a thing where, they vacillated back and forth. But, Austin did a little verbally, instantly, he was kind of all over Owens. You stupid son of a bitch, and et cetera. And the people were loving it. And Owens had a great line. He said, if I were you, if I'd been born in Texas, I would have moved to Mexico. It's right there. Right down the road. But the premise of how they got into the fight was that Owens let Austin on a secret. He invited him to the KO show not to talk, but to have a fight. And Owens says, even though I have a bad back, I challenge you to a no-holds-barred match or whatever, because he talked about all of Austin's bad body parts. Someone may have suggested that to him via podcast a few weeks ago. And he wants a no-holds-barred match. So Austin, meanwhile, has been letting the heel run his mouth and percolating and with that face. And he started milking the people with the facial expressions, as you said. And he said, well, I had my first match in Dallas. I could have my last match here. He said, if you want to see me have my last match here, give me a hell yeah, which they did. And then he started to ask, give me a goddamn ref. And he's give me a god. And he realized, can I say this? I don't even know anymore. He just said, give me a god ref. And the ref comes in and the bell rings and here we go.
It was just so cool, though, because it was in that brief moment where everyone there realized this is going to happen.
Yeah.
Say hell yeah, everyone does it. He could still pull back. I wish I could, but I'm here just to kick his ass, whatever. When he did it the second time, it was, oh shit, we're about to get a Steve Austin match. And then it happened.
Yeah. And also, I mean, he's just so good and he knows he's got the people. Like the one time he said, I tell you what, about 75,000 people in 5 seconds are all going to be calling you an asshole. And then they say, asshole. He could make them, throw their babies in the fucking lion cage at the zoo if he asked them to. Anyway, they start the slugfest, the mud hole stomp. He shot Steen off, and Steen took the Ray Stevens bump into the turnbuckle. He was pulling out all the stops. Let's face it. Steve wasn't getting his legs up as high. He wasn't getting as much force in the stomps, and he wasn't moving like he used to. But that was, again, 20 years ago. And I've said before, he was so over the mud hole stomp spot. They looked like shit 25 years ago. But he was so over, nobody could see it. It was snow blindness. It was mass hypnosis. He could do no wrong. Now that they're getting a chance to see him like that and hadn't seen him in so long, he could have been in a fucking iron lung, as Chief Jay Strongbow would have said. They still wouldn't have been able to see it because it's Austin. So, and then, by the way, did you notice, unless I am mistaken, unless I had skipped through something and didn't see it, when Owens posted Austin and started getting some heat on him and pulled a table out from under the ring, was that the first table of this show?
You know what? I didn't even think of it. It may have been. You may be right.
Uh-huh. And guess what? Stone Cold threw Kevin Owens through the fucking table. And again, because he is a major star and knows exactly how this business works, I guarantee you that Steen is the one who suggested that they do that spot. And then Austin went to all the producers and said, hey, nobody else use a table. We're using a table. And we're the main event. That's what you're supposed to do. So anyway, then they fight out into the crowd over the railing. Brian, was that the first time on the show that anybody'd gone over the railing out into the crowd and had a big fight?
I believe so.
Wow, it's amazing how this works. Because now people are going crazy. Oh, shit, they're out in the crowd. Not, hey, they did that 3 minutes ago. Owens suplexed Austin on the floor. I wouldn't have taken that if I was a retired multimillionaire movie star, but it's Austin. Big slugfest back to ringside. Austin slams Owens off the barricade onto the desk. That was a fucking hell of a bump. Drank some more beer, beat up Owens on the desk, spit beer on him. Owens gets away and gets on the ATV and can't figure out how to start it, which is classic. And also, I don't know whether they have a lot of ATVs in Canada. I wouldn't know how to start one up. But Austin jumps on his back and starts it up and drives Owen to the stage and beats him up on the stage and suplexes him on the stage. And then takes him to the other end and suplexes him there so all the people on the other side of the stadium can see it. And then throws him down the ramp. And Owens is a combination of a human ping pong ball and a super ball, one of those rubber ones that, boom, it bounces twice as high as when you dropped it. This is his moment. And then finally, Owens hits a stunner and gets a 2 count, just to give him a little more jeopardy there. He gets the chair. He swings. He hits the top rope when Austin ducks. Bam, bam, the old bam, bam spot. I first saw that 40 years ago. This was one of the better ones I've ever seen. He fucking nailed it. And as soon as the chair bounces off Owens' fucking head, Austin's there with the stunner. Boom. 1, 2, 3. And that's what they came to see. And then they had the beer bash and then a second stunner. And then more beer, and he called the announcer, Byron Allen, in, gave him a stunner, had a beer with his brother. Austin is evergreen. He can do anything he wants. He's bulletproof. They love it. Whatever. Bring his brother in, bring his dog, whatever the fuck. So that was the way to go home, don't you think, on the first night?
I thought there were so many good matches. I shouldn't say so many good matches. There were really good matches on night one. There were some great moments. And the Steve Austin interview segment into the match was incredible. You didn't know you were going to get a match. Even if you were someone who thought you were a few weeks ago, the best is you had a sneaky suspicion maybe it could happen. And then it happened. And he didn't embarrass himself at all. He was great. The kicks looked like shit. They always did, but they really did. They really looked like shit. But beyond that, it was Steve Austin. And it was the perfect way to end night one. And it was one of the better WrestleMania. Night one itself was one of the better WrestleManias in recent memory.
Well, yeah, the Miz and Logan Paul match was good because of Logan Paul and everybody, but Logan Paul was the standout. Lynch and Belair was that the best women's match I've seen in quite a while? Probably. Cody and Seth, to me, was the match of the night. Austin's business was that was the money. That was the pro wrestling angle match segment of the night that everybody wanted to see. The best in-ring match, I thought, was Seth and Cody, which, again, is, when you look at the lineup, is not much of a surprise. But what may be a surprise, Becky and Bianca weren't too far behind. And then I wasn't as hard on Rousey and Charlotte as you were, because I went in with lowered expectations based on what we've seen Ronda doing, but people wanted to see it. So, but overall, like I said, best match, Cody, Seth. Best segment of pro wrestling, Austin and Owens for night one.
I go with Becky and Bianca being the best match, Cody and Seth being the second best and really, really good. I thought Cody Rhodes had a really special night. And the Austin thing was just fantastic. You saw Steve Austin. I mean, we've seen him pop up and do different things, like give Jonathan Coachman a stunner and different things throughout the years. This was classic Austin now. And it was really cool to see.
And, you know, part of the problem, I think, and especially on the second night, I started getting this. Everybody that the people really wanted to see are no longer regularly active, if active at all. The biggest stars, the people they wanted to see, the people they got the biggest kick out of, Vince, Undertaker, Austin, Triple H, everybody that was, you're seeing, okay, the people live. Oh my God, we're seeing Vince McMahon and Steve Austin in the ring. That is the biggest money drawing program of all time. They're also 176 and one's nearly 60. Triple H, even though he just had to retire because of the heart issue, whatever, he started with the company in 1995. Undertaker, the Hall of Fame, the retirement, blah, blah, blah. And then they wanted to see Brock, who's part-time, and really Roman Reigns and potentially Rousey, while it lasts because of her mainstream name, are the only big-time mainstream names that are there regularly, right? If you took the celebrities and the returning veterans off of both these nights, there would have been a lot of people waiting to pop. And that's not good for regular business or for the future, because as we can see, they've run through the Hall of Fames. They've run through Vince ain't going to have another match, one would hope. So